We've got these big dreams and big aspirations, but don't really have a pathway, or at least society hasn't told us there's a pathway to be that. And so I definitely felt, when I look back at who that little girl was, that she probably lacked a lot of confidence. She probably really didn't enjoy the company of strangers. Doing something like this would have been like, absolutely no. And Amelia today is audacious.
The opposite.
Yeah,
confident.
completely opposite. I did a workshop very recently with a big conglomerate, and one of the guys said to me, how did you get so confident? And honestly, I think that the best answer I can give anyone, and who I am, and probably who the three of us are, is that confidence has become through just doing it and just living, and other people not being okay with that, but you being okay with that. So very different women and to the girl I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
So today you're a founder, you're an author. Just explain about your business, Clout, and what it does.
Yeah, so Clout actually started as a personal branding agency. So we used to ghostwrite clients' content, we create content for their Instagrams, we help them grow. And we typically work and still do work with founders, because founders building in public is very sexy right now. You look at Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, even Donald Trump. These people have spent millions and millions of dollars building their personal brands to be able to get ahead in their careers. And that's not new. You know, Bill Gates did it, Steve Jobs did it, but now it's very mainstream, and a lot of young founders, particularly, seeing how important being active on social media is, because people buy from people. But now we very much evolved into an education and media company. So instead of ghostwriting clients' content, which we do have an arm of the business that still does that, the majority of our business is basically teaching people how to do this for themselves, giving them the tools, the tactics, and the confidence and the audacity to actually go out and just post. I'm such a big believer that so many people hold themselves back from the potential that they can reach, and more importantly, perhaps the potential their business can reach, because they themselves are not confident enough to just do it. Just go out there, put your face in a camera, do something like this, ask for that speaking gig, tell that publisher that you've got something to write about. You need to ask yourself, or rather give yourself more permission than waiting for things to kind of fall in your lap. So that's what we do now.
And we've known each other for some time, and the personal branding industry, I might agree, personal branding's always been around, and people used to build their personal brands in mainstream media. But on social media, it's really exploded, hasn't it? If you look at the content on LinkedIn, across social, of founders building their personal brand, what changes have you seen?
I think, look, influencer as a kind of concept is now very mainstream, right? I think if you'd asked people what an influencer was 30 years ago, they would have said a politician or an actress or a businessman, probably. Now, an influencer is someone who has got a following of some kind, whether that's online or off, and who influences people. And so I don't think it's a surprise that the marketing of a business has followed that same kind of marketing trend, because people buy from people. They've always bought from people. I remember there was that scandal with Cambridge Analytica many years ago, and everyone was going, oh my goodness, how could they possibly have persuaded these people to have voted that way? But that's how PR and marketing has worked for millennia. People being influenced into doing something by other people is how this game works. And so I think a lot of founders now, and particularly a lot of bigger businesses, are going, right, not only have people always bought from people, but now they don't buy from polished people. They don't buy from the marketing and PR comms approved quote that's gone out after a crisis has happened, or we've had an acquisition, or whatever it might be.
Or from the model that's been employed for a certain role.
Yeah, people don't care about that anymore. Even if we kind of wider marketing, it's why TripAdvisor exists. No one trusts any companies anymore, because companies lie. It's hard for a human being to lie and get away with it so easily. So when you put your founder and your CEO at the front of your business, you win pockets and checks and all that kind of stuff, but you also win the minds and the hearts of your customer, and that really breeds loyalty. It really breeds repeat business, which is something a huge amount, particularly with e-commerce. And I think there are more and more founders realizing that you don't have to stand behind the brand anymore. Actually, if you want to win quickly, even if you've got funding or not got funding, the quickest route to market is through your own story, why you set the business up, really speaking to your customers, speaking to your employees and also potential employees, and getting people really bought into your journey. And we've seen this with Ben Francis at Gymshark, Grace Beverly with Tala, Stephen Bartlett's probably a more kind of obvious example. All of these founders have recognized the power of turning their own brand into a media company and then building businesses off the back of it.
And you've written this book, Personal Branding Playbook, which tells people how they can do it. But what I love is your opening here. This book's dedicated to anyone and everyone who's ever had the audacity to be 100% okay with the consequences of being themselves, both online and offline. What does it take for somebody to put themselves out there, and why is audacity important?
Oh,
I mean, people are born for it.
Yeah.
And naturals, and others it's a big deal to start building a personal brand and putting yourself on camera.
Do you know what's funny? I spoke to someone about this recently and they said, I'm an introvert. Like, how do I build my personal brand? I said, you know what's really funny is introverts get their energy from being alone. Extroverts get their energy from being with other people, but neither one of those people are necessarily automatically confident. And I think that's a big misconception with just human beings generally.
I agree, actually. There's different things there.
Yeah, so I'm naturally really extroverted, but really, really lacked confidence for most of my childhood and adult life. I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I was pretty enough. I didn't think I was enough, period. And so that translates into lack of self-esteem and lack of confidence, because we get confidence from evidence, right? So if the evidence is you are not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, then you think, okay, I'm not any of those things, so I'm just going to shrink so that no one notices me. And that can happen whether you're introverted or extroverted. So coming back to your question of how can anyone have the audacity to be themselves, I think there's probably a bit of a deeper dive here, and you can probably speak more about this as well. We are very scared to be ourselves, not because people who are themselves are special and we're not, because we have part of our brain that's been there for millennia that basically says, if you raise eyebrows with your tribe, you'll get booted out of the tribe and then probably eaten by some kind of saber-toothed tiger. And so you have this constant narrative in your head of, I must protect myself, I must protect myself, I must protect myself. And so you don't show people who you really are, because what if you're rejected for it? It's much safer to just be conformative and stay in your lane and not ruffle feathers, because then there's no danger in that. The problem is there are no such thing, unfortunately, as saber-toothed tigers and dinosaurs anymore, right? Like, we're not going to get eaten by anything necessarily. So that part of our brain, albeit was really important at one point, is no longer helpful to us pursuing the things that we want to pursue. And so I wish I could say there was some great hack you could use to become audacious, to become confident, to become who you probably are meant to be. But actually what you just need to do is do it. And I think one of the probably more practical ways you can do this is, we spoke about this previously with my list with my partner. I made a list, which all my friends laughed hilarious so much at me for. I was like, I've got 79 things on my list of what I want in a partner. And they're like, you're insane. And the first thing on that list was 6'2" or over. My partner's 5'8", so we didn't get really that one. But every other thing on that list was about values, was about what that person had in their heart, what they cared about, all these kind of things that are really intrinsically important. And I've now met that person, we're engaged, and it's amazing. But I think the reason I met that person was because I became that person. So when we talk about the point of this, which is how can you become confident, how can you become audacious, you become it. You make your list. Who would I need to be? What behaviors would I need to have to be that person? And then you do it. There's a reason why fake it till you make it is a thing, but actually let's go deeper than that. Who do you need to be if you were the best version of yourself? You make that list and then you become that list. And I think that's a very powerful thing.
And you've built a large personal brand across social media, and I'm sure many people watching will recognize you and probably know who you are. But interestingly, one of those things you talked about, the fear of sort of rejection from your community or being judged, did happen to you, didn't it? When you found that your friends, and this is an incredible story because this would be like my worst fear.
It was around when we first met, actually, that this happened.
So tell everyone what happened, because if this happened to me, I definitely would cry.
Okay, and I think I probably did, actually. It was brutal. So I just started really taking my personal brand really seriously. I'd already been posting content online, but it was very much geared towards my what I did as a career. I was trying to build up a following around employer branding and marketing, because that's kind of what I did as a job. And so I guess it didn't feel so unsafe, because
it was in the realms of work.
It was in the realms of work. So none of my friends really, I guess, noticed that I was doing this. And then when I did one post that was maybe a little bit more personal and saw this, the response was like unbelievable. I was like, wow, like I thought I needed to be professional on a professional networking site, LinkedIn, in order for me to get ahead. And actually what I really need to be is personal and professional. Like, I can provide insight and humanity. And so the more I started doing this, the bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger my brand got. And at one point I went from about 13,000 followers to 24 in the space of a few months. Like, I was doubling almost every quarter, which was amazing. But in the background, my friends, who I'm very happy to say are no longer friends with me anymore, thought that I was like egotistical. They thought that, well, who does she think she is to be doing this?
Which I think is the fear of who do they think? Who do you think? If that's what everyone thinks, people will think, who do I think I am?
Yeah. And unfortunately for me, they screenshot images of my content and they posted it into a WhatsApp group. I don't know whether the group was set up intentionally to do this or not, so I'm not going to say it was, but I wasn't in the group.
Yeah.
And they shared these screenshots of my content in the group to basically make fun of me. And it happened over and over again. It wasn't like a one-off thing. There was like about 4 or 5 posts that went in there over a period of a couple of months. Oh my God, who does she think she is? All of this kind of stuff. And actually it was a person who was in that group that ended up telling me. I don't know whether she partook in, she may have and then felt guilty, but she told me what was going on, sent me evidence of what people have been saying, people who I thought were really good friends with me, and needless to say, I'm not friends with those people anymore. At the time, I was devastated. I thought, like, these people, I don't know if it was actually the mocking that was so sad. It was the fact that these were people I loved and that I really trusted and all of this kind of stuff. And it was almost like, it was the backstabbing, I think, that was the most painful bit. But the reality is, people are who they are, and that's okay, but they don't necessarily need to be with you for your entire journey. I love the saying, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And those people's season was up, and that's okay. And I think sometimes when you're doing something, whether it be building your personal brand, getting that promotion at work, getting married, not getting married, traveling the world, whatever it is that you decide to do with your life that people around you don't support, whether it's to your face or not, normally people say you shouldn't when they actually mean I can't. And you doing something that perhaps highlights their inaction of their own doing can feel uncomfortable for those people. And it's much easier for them to make fun of you than to actually accept that they are incapable or unwilling to do the thing that you are actually doing. So I think when you frame it that way, it's like, okay, cool. That hurt, that stung, but they weren't really my friends anyway, because if they were my friends, they'd be supporting me.
It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened.